losing your arm at sea, working as a real pirate booty hunter, and what's more scary, surfing big waves at Mavericks or being an entrepreneur. All right. Hey ho, let's go. Welcome to the show that's been called, quote, the podcast Silicon Valley needs, and, quote, one of the best podcasts of all time, where we aim to have authentic dialogues about what it takes to design a legendary business and a legendary life. And man, am I ever glad you're here. Today on the show, we have one of my favorite entrepreneurs, a guy that I find insanely inspiring, Jeff Denholm. And I'll tell you more about Jeff in a second. But if you like to be inspired and you're somebody who really wants to kind of get into the minds of legendary entrepreneurs, I'd also point you to episode 44 with Marine entrepreneur and Chief Digital Officer, my buddy Christian Anschutz, episode 44. Also want to tell you about a great event that I am lucky enough to be speaking at. Our friends at Wildcat Ventures, one of the top venture capital firms in Silicon Valley, is having an exclusive executive event in San Francisco on September the 6th from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. If you're interested, send email to blackhole@legendsandlosers.com. I'll be giving a talk. I'll be hanging out with my buddy, the amazing entrepreneur, category designer, soon-to-be author, and, of course, venture capitalist Bruce Cleveland. And we're going to have a great time. I'll be signing copies of Play Bigger, and we could even have a cocktail together. blackhole@legendsandlosers.com, September 6th, Wildcat Ventures, San Francisco. All right, my buddy Jeff Denholm. You know, if you look up manly man in the dictionary, there's probably a picture of Jeff. Jeff is as tough and adventurous as any human being I have ever met. When he was working as a merchant marine in the Bering Sea, Jeff's arm got caught, and I won't tell you the details because he will, but he has a terrible accident that ultimately costs him his arm. And it should have cost him his life, frankly. But he went on to thrive. He's somebody who self-designed prosthetics for surfing and for extreme skiing, as well as extreme paddle racing. This is a guy who has raced paddle boards from island to island in Hawaii. He surfs. He, of course, dives as a merchant marine. He body surfs. He competes in long-distance paddleboard races in Hawaii. And he's one of the very few athletes who has served for many years as a Patagonia surf ambassador, actually over a decade. And he's also an ambassador for nonprofit 1% for the planet. He is one of the most impressive extreme skiers, mountaineers, surfers, and divers in the world. And Jeff is an entrepreneur. He's the founder and chief executive of ATIRA Systems. And he's on a mission to offer highly effective, non-toxic firefighting, quote-unquote, solutions to fire agencies and industrial users around the world. It turns out that the stuff that our firefighters puke out onto our buildings and even into forest fires and the like is very toxic. And so Jeff is on a mission to change all that. And I believe in his mission, and I believe in him, and that's why I've been an advisor and an investor to Jeff and his company. He's been featured in the Adventure Journal, the Surf Channel, Santa Cruz Waves, Off the Lip Radio, Outside Magazine, the San Jose Mercury News, and the Los Angeles Times. And now the legendary Jeff Denholm is on Legends and Losers. You think Exile on Main Street's the best Stones album?
Yeah, I like Exile, and I like Sticky Fingers and Let It Bleed. Those are my three favorite. I mean, I've seen the guy. I'm a huge Stones fan. I played in a cover band in college. I was a drummer. Stones cover band called Metamorphosis. Remember that album, Metamorphosis album?
I do.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know you were a musician, never mind a Stones fan.
Yeah. Drummer from like fifth grade until I lost my arm. And when I segued from college to Merchant Marine, I couldn't drag a drum set around. I lived in Seattle. I had one there. But once I started going down the commercial my career, I didn't have time.
Yeah.
I wasn't staying up late. I was working contracts. I was gone. I mean, either you commit or you don't.
Yeah.
And, in hindsight, I had skill as a we have deep music blood in our family, and I blew it all off and just kind of like half-assed it my whole life. And I could have fucking done something with it when I look back at it. And it was one of those things like where, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but I feel music more than it gives me greater joy than just listening to really good music gives me almost as much joy as catching a big wave, really, realistically. So it's in me, and I kind of like.
So like, what's a great piece of music that makes you feel that way?
Well, I mean, I so much. I like so much music. I'm not like, I'll listen to Public Enemy. I'll listen to Brahms. I'll listen to, Stuart Copeland's soul stuff, Billy Bruford. I like all the drummers. I'll listen to jazz, acid jazz. I'm a huge roots reggae, like deep roots reggae fan. I flew to Birmingham to go see Sabbath's first reunion tour. I got second row dead center seats to go see Sabbath in Birmingham, England. From here, I flew to New York City, the Beacon Theater, to go see the Allman Brothers last show at the Beacon Theater. I went every year for 20 years if I was around to go see the Beacon shows in New York City for the Allman Brothers. So I'm all over the place. But I guess.
And so when you
know what resonates the deepest with me is blues and Southern rock. And I'm a fucking Yankee. I'm from Boston, right? And blues and Southern rock.
So what bands, what musicians?
Marshall Tucker, Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner, some of their older stuff, Toy Caldwell, all that goes so deep. And then their influences, and all that Muscle Shoals music that came out of the South So how does a dude from Maine get that? I don't know. My mom watched me dance. She's like, you got black man in you, And I'm like, I'm a Maine. You can dance. Maine, Boston boy, Yankee to the core, prep schools, the whole 9 yards. And I fucking love the Southern rock and blues. I feel like a Southerner. I'd never lived there in a million years, but I love the music.
Stevie Ray Vaughan?
It was huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fan.
Stevie Ray
My mother
Vaughan,
called me the day he died in 1991. He died a couple months after Miles Davis and a couple months after Freddie Mercury. 3 major hits. Boom, 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 right in a row.
Kind of like what we had last year, right?
The world's falling
with
apart.
Bowie and Prince and Leonard Cohen. Holy fuck.
Cohen,
Yeah, that, Stevie Ray Vaughan, I think he's one of the most underrated. And the reason I say that is if you really think about it and you're completely candid, there are very few guitar players in rock and roll history who, within a few notes, exactly who it is kind of every time.
Yeah, he's definitely one. My martial arts instructor was a doorman at the University of Rhode Island's Rathskeller. And in 1980 something, he's like, hey, because I was a drummer, he's like, there's some guitar player from Texas playing here tonight. Apparently he's the best guy since Hendrix. I'll get you in. I was like 19. And so I went down to CURI that night and walked in there, and there were like 20 people in this and this guy comes out with his hat on, shuffles out on stage, and like I'm getting goose. Look, within the first 3 notes, I was like, and then it was a stream of music because he didn't want to talk. He had his hat down like this. It was like 86 or something. And he just lit the place up. I was like, oh my God, that's the best guitar player alive.
Every time I hear Pride and Joy, it's just a mind blower. Yeah. Crank it every time.
Yeah. Are we on?
We've been on this whole time.
Cool. Cool.
Welcome to Legends and Losers.
I don't want to be a loser.
Well, you can't be a legend without being a loser, right?
Exactly. One gives the other perspective.
So how did you make the decision to say, I want to be a merchant marine and I'm going to give up my huge passion for music and drums?
Well, I was in college in Boston. I was at Northeastern and engineering school, really struggling. My dad was an engineer. It was the only degree to get, and it's a great school and a great place, and it was only an hour and a half from home. And my dad went to Northeastern, so and I was really struggling, and I wasn't having a good time. And in the summers, I was working on the tour boats in the harbor, and I got my mate's license. And so I had a career.
Why was that important to you, Jeff?
Working on the boats?
Yeah.
I needed to make a living. It was just, I just grew up on the southern coast of Maine working on, fishing boats. And then I went down and applied in the summer to work on the boats there, met a captain that was working for the Boston Harbor Cruise Lines. And so I would work in the day on the harbor tours and at night on the booze cruises. And I accrued over 3 summers a ton of time. You have to get sea time and then test it up. And then I met with an advisor in school and said, look, I'm not having fun. And, he's like, look, you want to be an engineer? You want to be an architectural engineer? That's what you're telling me. So this is you. He goes, either you're super uber talented, like IMPay or one of these famous architects, or Frank Lloyd Wright, which you're not, or you're rich and you can get out of college and start your own firm, which you're not. Or you want to be a draftsman for 30 years in a rat in a cage, which you're not. So you already have a career, Denholm. You're working on boats. You're happy. You're like, why don't you pursue that? And he was right. And so
and this was an advisor?
This is Dr. Rush Assad. There was the head of the architecture program at Northeastern University at the time.
He threw you out of the architecture program.
He taught me out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was his algorithm.
Wow. Can you imagine now as an adult putting yourself in his shoes and having the insight and then the balls to act on it?
Yeah. He was a guy. I was in one of his classes and I sat right down front. I had a mohawk at the time. And he's like, either you're a lot of trouble or a breath of fresh air. And I haven't figured it out yet. And I said, I'm a little of both.
Yeah, I was going to say. That's my experience of you.
Right. And so he was right. And I ended up meeting a guy in Boston that was working in Alaska. He brought his iPhone in the next day, which was a fanny pack back in the day full of Polaroids, because this was 1987. And he's like started showing me pictures of the St. Elias Range and the Alaska Range and all these salmon and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm moving. He hooked me up with someone in Seattle. I got a job working on a boat. I enrolled in DIT, the Divers Institute of Technology.
How old were you?
20. And then never looked back.
The Divers Institute of Technology?
Yeah, it's a commercial dive school in Seattle. It's like the Harvard of commercial dive schools.
What's that like, the Harvard of commercial diving?
They just teach you, toys and widgets, and you go through all the physiology and all the technology and all the methodology, and you're just a glorified construction worker underwater. But I loved it. And it was something that I saw through to the end, which with a guy with the attention span of a gnat, that's pretty good, So it was something I did. It took me 4 years to get through. I ended up with the 2-year certificate from there. And I concurrently was working seasonally in Alaska. I was doing a lot of traveling. It was the gold rush era of Alaska fishing. And I was making bank in the summers. And I would go from late August till December and travel the world surfing and skiing, or adventuring, chasing girls, whatever, and then would come back and work a quick crab season in January. I do the school semester went from February through till the end of May, and I did that 4 years in a row, and then just kept going back to Alaska in the summer, then doing some traveling, then doing schooling, then doing summer. I did that until I lost my arm on the fishing boat in Alaska. So and the thing was, I felt like a clock was ticking because I'd seen so much carnage on those boats. And
why was there so much carnage on the boats?
People was getting hurt. They're at sea on the Bering Sea working on, it's the deadliest catch to come in real life, and things were a lot looser then, and guys were getting killed and guys were getting hurt all the time.
So put me on one of those boats with you, Jeff.
Every boat's different. They're their own little universe, right? So you're stuck on this thing for however long the season is, however many days.
How big is the thing?
They're all different. I worked on a salmon boat that was 85 feet. I worked on a dragging for pollock and cod that was 200 feet. And they're all different contracts. They're all different seasons. I worked mostly summer seasons, like I said, Northern Hemisphere summer. And so, you try to find work on a boat with a reputable crew of officers. So a really good captain, a really good first mate, and a really good engineer, because they're the ones that are keeping their shit together and keeping you alive. And I climbed the ladder. I never ran a boat up there,
And
but
how big are the crews?
They depended on the 200-foot boat. There were 40 something guys on a small salmon boat. There were 5 guys on a crab boat. There'd be 5 guys.
And how long are you out with those 5
the
guys?
Longest, those crab boats are shorter seasons, and you could tend to be in and out a lot more often, and you're fishing closer to port, if you will. Whereas on that commercial dragger, I did 73 days at sea one summer on a contract. It sucked.
What's it like being 73 days at sea on one of those things?
Man, I was just working. I just went into, psycho zone and just worked and just counted the dollars. We just tried to fill that thing up with fish. It was raping the planet. Unfortunately, it wasn't sustainable, those big commercial boats. And, looking back on it, I probably shouldn't have done it, but I didn't know any better. And I was just chasing money and adventure and trying to tick it up, get more time at sea and get more licenses and advance. And as in my merchant marine career, I was one of the chief engineers on that boat, had mining claims, and we were doing dredge mining, gold mining as a diver. So I did, a couple weeks doing that here and there. So all adventure, and just, I wasn't in an office. I was happy. I was making cash, and I'd have large chunks of time off to go surf and ski and try to kill myself.
And I definitely want to get to your surf and ski life, because I don't know how you get to the elite levels of both, but we'll get there in a second. And so, do you get any sleep on these boats?
It would depend if things were, breaking or you're in the fish all the time, you'd sleep very little. And the hardest part wasn't, you're tired, your sleep deprivation is an issue, but it was the irregularity of the sleep patterns that would mess with you.
Because when there was fish, you were working.
You're working, and there was something would break, and you're having to fix it. And then, and so you sleep 3 hours, work 12, sleep 4 hours, work 18, sleep 3 hours, work 12, sleep 9 hours, there'd be no fish, you'd be steaming, sleep 18 hours, and then work 10, and then so it was irregular, and that messes
no
with
such thing as a normal day.
So unhealthy. You are on certain boats, they're more corporate run, and these bigger boats, you work shifts, and you'd work a 12-hour shift, and then you'd have 6 hours off, and then you'd work an 8-hour shift, and you'd have 8 hours off, and you work a 12-hour shift, and you work 6 hours off. You do that type of thing. But then again, a crew member gets hurt, you end up backfilling. You're in the fish nonstop, a net breaks, a cable breaks, a generator goes out, your work,
It's literally all hands on deck.
Yeah, all hands on somewhere. Yeah.
All hands on whatever.
Yeah.
And this may be a silly or crazy question, but what does it smell like?
It's olfactory just goes numb. You stop smelling all the really bad smells. But it smells like sweaty men and dead fish.
Yeah. That's what I would have guessed, but and like lots of both, right? And
bloody fish and guts, and lots of both. When it's cold, it's relatively cold up there in the summer. The water never really gets above the 40s, and so that's an ambient temperature that affects. It's Alaska. It's cold.
And I assume you're dealing with all conditions at sea, from calm to insane and everything in between.
Calm to insane. Yeah. Yeah, and it's choppy. The Bering Sea is not this big rolly Pacific. It's choppy proximal weather systems that barrel in and hit the Aleutians and split in half and create this relatively high frequency chop, which beats the crap out of it. It said this rolly. It's, pounding.
And is navigation hard up there?
No, and even then it was modern day technology. There's no navigation. Sure, if everything went down, then we'd be forced to navigate with a compass and a sextant.
I guess I meant more than dealing with the circumstances that are in front of you. Is there anything particular to,
the hardest thing to navigate with the other personalities, the boneheads on the boats, the drug addicts or the criminals that are up there doing it. And then there were guys like me that were focused on career, saving money, getting ahead in adventure. And when I lost my arm, I thought I was toast in the industry, and I ended up carrying on to go on to be a commercial diver, work for one of the top undersea explorers in the world. So I was able to perpetuate a career, which was most important to me. I was there because I loved it and I wanted to do it long term. And I had certain goals in mind. I wanted to reach chief engineer, master's, unlimited captain's license. I had these goals, and so there's a course, just like college or anything else, or Boy Scouts. You had to achieve your merit badges, right? Or martial arts, you one belt at a time. And so I was focused on the long run with the career and the flexibility that it gave me, because I wasn't locked in 9 to 5 and I wasn't commuting. And
when you could take all that time off and go surf or ski.
Yeah. Or do anything, go to commercial dive school, or, anything other than having to be in this regular pattern. I with the ADD, like you, I need to be challenged, and I need to change the scenery. I'm never more happy when I pop in a Allman Brothers disc, roll the windows down, and just punch it. Where are you going? I don't know. Who cares? Like, the scenery's changing, right? I'm going somewhere. I'm going to meet new people. I'm going to be challenged. It's going to be different. And I find peace in being challenged. It's like, it's where the surf and skiing comes in, like big wave riding. I find most clarity in those moments of chaos. Maybe, I don't know, calms me. I think we're cut from the same stone in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, in different domains. I don't confuse myself that what you do on a mountain or a wave is what I do on a mountain or a wave. But I think it's the same feeling in different domains, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, when you go to the NASDAQ and press the button and go public for the first time in a company that you helped start, that's, to me, the equivalent kind of feeling. And actually, even more so today, I'm lucky enough that I get an email pretty much every day, sometimes more, from somebody who read Play Bigger somewhere around the world and said, "Hey, man,
I read it twice.
Yeah,
it was amazing. I mean, I'm a late stage businessman, and this is my next chapter is entrepreneurialism. And I'm focused specifically on a business that has more than just an economic value to it, an environmental value that was important when I dove headfirst into this next chapter. But that book resonated with me so much because I'm always looking for this formula, a roadmap, because I don't have an MBA. I don't even have a bachelor's degree. I didn't study business. I read economic books. I love socioeconomics, and Jared Diamond, all these guys. I study it in my own right, but I don't have a formal training. And I had to teach myself how to do Excel and Word and all this crap, and P&Ls and balance sheets and cash flow statements and all that. I've learned on the fly, and it's been scary.
What's scarier, learning a balance sheet or riding a wave at Mavericks?
Learning the balance sheet and not letting my investors down is the scariest thing that I've dealt with.
That's scarier than surfing Mavericks?
Yeah, to me, Mavericks, I love being scared. I thrive on that. But what keeps me up at night with something that I feel like people have invested in me, put my balls on the line here with this business, my reputation, my name, and they're investing. Look, I'm in the firefighting industry. We're making a non-toxic flame retardant. Who the fuck knows what that is, right? So these investors are investing in Jeff Denholm, and they're investing in my vision and my dream, because in great part, even though I sell them up the opportunity, I articulate the industry, I articulate the business, I articulate why we're doing it. But when it comes down to it, 99% of my investors have invested in this guy. And so at night, when I wake up at 3 a.m, with my head going on business, I'm worried about losing their money. And I've had business guys tell me, "Oh, it's business. They knew what they signed up for." And I said, you know what? F that. There's nothing more personal. That idea, that old adage that it's not personal, it's just business. There's nothing more fucking personal in business. Last time I checked, I need to make money to buy fucking food and healthcare. And food and healthcare keeps me alive. So that's pretty personal, right? And then when you take say some middle management guy that's got 4 fucking kids, right? And it's just, you fire him, it's just business. No, it's not. It's his life, right? So don't hand me that crap.
No, I have felt that for so long. And frankly, Jeff, it's a big part of why I wanted to do Legends and Losers, because I don't know of a place. If there's one, I'd love to know. I'd really love to know where you can experience an authentic dialogue with somebody who's trying to do something awesome in business about their business and their life and the good and the bad. Because I don't think we make business decisions, because what motivates you in your business is your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know,
So
I have to be passionate about it or I wouldn't do it. I'd fail at it. So this is something, you know, I got into the firefighting industry, recommended to buy a piece of equipment and start leasing it. And then I discovered all these issues in the industry. I met my business partner who enlightened me to these opportunities and more issues. And it was because I was in the industry and I had first responders in my family and had a lot of friends that were first responders and had a lot of friends that live in including myself, and play in the outdoors, and all the existing flame retardants technology was ruining that. It was personal. So that's why I bit into it. And I honestly didn't know what I was biting into, man. I didn't realize how big and how hard it would be. It's the hardest thing I've ever done.
yeah. And did you want to be an entrepreneur? Did you know that?
You know, yeah. And the low hanging fruit was like open up an organic, raise $1 million from a friend and open up an organic pizza kitchen and start minting money somewhere, doing that and being brain dead and just doing that. But instead I jumped into the multinational chemical company game, and I'm competing with DuPont, ICL, and Dow now. And so, no, I didn't envision that, and I never wanted to. And if you'd asked me 10 years ago, do you see yourself becoming an entrepreneur and going into the chemical industry, I'd say, you know what? No. How? You know, and when I was first challenged so I had a friend, so I expressed all these issues that, you know, the U.S. Forest Service is dumping tens of millions of gallons of EPA banned toxic chemicals to fight these fires. And one of my friends at Patagonia deadpanned me. So what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, what do you mean what am I going to do about it? I don't have a PhD in chemistry and I can't do anything about it. And they challenged me. And then there was a lot of serendipity at the beginning that sort of, I'm one of these open-minded guys that tries to read the subtleties of life. Despite being a man, I try to be intuitive and open up my consciousness.
Are
And
you saying you're a sensitive adventure jock, super
no,
entrepreneur?
not sensitive. I'm trying to be. And so these things happened at the beginning of the business that were like signs of, you know, serendipity coming to play, that were saying, Denholm, this thing chose me more than I chose it.
How did your involvement with Patagonia and that whole experience influence your thinking as a early stage entrepreneur?
Oh, everything. I knew for a fact if I was going to start a business like the organic pizza thing, it would be a farm to table restaurant, and we'd be marketing and branding the farmers and selling their wares to the public in a product called flatbread pizza. And, you know, so there would be that connection. So anything I did business wise, I had to have some for the benefit of humanity or the environment, which are inextricably obviously connected. And obviously being an ambassador for Patagonia, you know, where their mission statement is to implement change to the environmental crisis through business, is huge to me. I mean, look what they've done. Yvon Chouinard, a legendary athlete, reluctant businessman, high school dropout, that's now running a multi-billion-dollar a year company, and moreover, a unlimited value of influence that they have in environmentalism across every industry in the world. Now they become the Pied Piper of doing good as a businessman. And so he's been able to leverage that. And I was inspired by that. Being one of their ambassadors, it's quote unquote my job to espouse to those ideals and standards.
When did you become a Patagonia ambassador?
2006, they called me up and interviewed me. I was in Hawaii. I was living in Maui running a flatbread pizza company on the North Shore. And I opened up a restaurant that my buddy owns, a chain of these organic pizza restaurants. And I had retired from diving and took a couple years to quote unquote find myself in play. And I talked him into opening a restaurant in Maui. I moved there and I was getting, more visible as a surfer. And
when you say you were charging, break that down. What is charging for you?
As an athlete, I was just putting myself out there more, surfing bigger and bigger waves and and really committing to paddleboarding and really committing to free diving at the time, and all these skills that are ocean oriented that certainly are central to the Patagonia brand. They're the fastest growing division of their company is the surf brand. And Yvonne's a surfer, and his son Fletcher, who's one of my very close friends, shapes all the boards, and he's a big time surfer.
His book's called "Let My People Go Surfing."
Right, exactly. So yeah, emulating their value system as a company, as an entrepreneur, Yvonne as an entrepreneur, is really important to me. You know, it's more than just it's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
So he's clearly one of your biggest inspirations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. And they also gave me a shot. I mean, I would, disabled athlete. I mean, they could have hired anybody, and they brought me in there. And they have this marketing moniker called "Committed to the Core." And I may not be the best, not even close to the best big, ocean athlete or waterman, if you will, but I am absolutely committed. I have to design my own prosthetics, reinvent the wheel, go, I tell stories. My first surfing arms were not, I use an adhesive now that locks it on there, and it's 95% foolproof. But initially, the first 12 years of surfing, I had an arm that was not glued on. So I would surf a day, my arm would be bloodied from the thing moving back and forth. I had to take 2 days off to heal, and then I'd surf a day and I'd heal. So I spent 2/3 of the year healing just so I could surf. My arm was just burger every day.
For how many fucking seasons?
Over 10. Yeah. Wow. Over 10.
And how long now have you had the adhesive and
since that 05.
05.
So, yeah.
So you got sponsored or you became an ambassador right around that time.
06, yeah. It was December when Jason McCaffrey, who's the director of the surf division at Patagonia, called me, and I came out of Ventura and interviewed, and they had momentary lapse of reason, and they hired me.
and Jeff, if I could get you to sort of get rid of some of your modesty, what do you think it was about what you were doing as a surfer and as a you really are, in the parlance of our times, as legit a water athlete as there can be? And actually, I would even say you're as a legit adventure athlete as there can be, because your mountain skills are.
Thanks, man.
I got a lot to ask you about there, but what was it at the time you think that really called, about you, that called to them?
I think it was that commitment. It was the fact that, so Yvonne was a climber. He reinvented the tools to facilitate his sport. I had to create tools to facilitate my ability to surf. So there was that sort of same evolution in what I was doing. And it went beyond just showing up and going to surf. I mean, I'm from Maine. I was surfing in cold water and sustaining I'm not the Southern California dude cruising to the beach in my VW bus, smoking a joint, and cruising on my longboard. I always wanted, my first surf trip was Puerto Escondido from Alaska. I went down there and I got annihilated for 3 weeks straight. And that's why I love surfing, because I just almost drowned every day. I mean, if it were only longboarding at Malibu, I wouldn't do it. I'd do something else. It wouldn't interest me. It wouldn't hurt enough. And then there's that weird gene where I need to be, it has to hurt for me to be having fun. Or it has to be scary, I guess, or challenging, right? Or otherwise, why, I don't know, I just lose interest.
It's so funny because I have that exact same philosophy in business, and I'm the other way when it comes to adventure sports. And maybe it's probably just because that's where my skill set really lies. Because from a business perspective, it's been true for a long time. It's especially true now. Like, for me to even think about getting involved with anything, it's got to be fucking legendary. Like, blow my mind legendary. Because otherwise, fuck it. Like, I have zero interest. But from an adventure athletics point of view, I'm perfectly happy to get on my longboard and surf hip high waves. And yeah.
I don't even, like, here, especially now with ATIRA, the retardant business, I have, my time's been consumed by the business, and I'm lucky I'm flexible. I work out of my house. I don't have to commute. I'm not in an office. Our headquarters are in Oregon. My partner handles the operations. And so, I only surf unless it's head and half, legitimately. I won't even go surf unless it's overhead. And that's because otherwise I'd be surfing every day, right? There's waves here every day.
Yeah.
And I just can't. And also, I enjoy surfing challenging, powerful waves. So I need to take days to heal, and I need to take days to train. I'll be in a pool, swimming laps, going out to Pleasure Point and sitting in one spot and chatting with somebody there. You're not getting in shape. And so I surf Moss Landing all winter where you're getting pounded intentionally so that when it's huge in Carmel, I shouldn't say it, well, or one of the big wave spots locally is breaking, I'm in shape. I can do it because I'm sitting at Pleasure Point in line on a longboard, and then I go to surf something powerful and challenging. I'm not going to pull it off.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then with the business and with my time and with the training and the cross training, I'll only surf, when it's bigger or larger rather than, I think I've surfed Pleasure Point twice.
Yeah.
And I've lived here 10 years.
And so where do you like to surf, Jeff?
I like to surf the beach breaks in the middle of the bay and the reefs up north where it's powerful. And certainly I came here with Mavericks on my list and surfed it many years when I first moved here. But after the movie, it got so busy and crowded and all these young bucks coming up. So it's been less enjoyable for me there. So I surf these other big wave spots around here that are, when it's over 30-foot faces, they start to happen and they're super fun and still really challenging. And I've taken some lickings the last few years. I mean, with a skiing accident, herniated disc. I broke my back skiing in 2013 and then broke my foot toe surfing and then re-herniated my back disc in my back surfing and then fractured my skull and broke my back skiing. And this is all in the last 5 years. And I've not stopped my sports. I've recovered. I got myself on a recovery program subsequent to every injury and just dug in and running my business. But see, I'm not married. I don't have kids. So it's a very selfish pursuit. It's only me to take care of my business and my sports. I mean,
but deal. I would push back on you on that because I hear people say that because, I don't have kids either. I say, oh, well, you're selfish people don't have kids.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know.
I want to live my life.
Yeah,
this is what I want to do with my life. Fuck you, I'm being selfish.
Right.
We get one life. Right. And we all know, look.
Well, yeah, I don't mean that. I look at my dad and I look at the average, like how good of a man he is, how good of a father he is. My parents are still married and what they pulled off and that, that in the family life, American dream type thing. I mean, I won the lottery. And so I measure myself against what he did.
Sure.
And so I look in the mirror and I'm like, and it didn't interest me. There's plenty of kids. Maybe I'll have a family. I don't know. I've got a young girlfriend and she
really, Jeff, you mean you big, handsome, strong, awesome, legendary man, athlete, entrepreneur has a young girlfriend. I'm so surprised to hear that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so, we'll see. I'm not opposed to it. Maybe that'll be the next chapter. But right now I'm on the entrepreneurial chapter and I've got to succeed.
And tell me how the business is going. How do you feel about it?
It's going good. So I launched a business called ATIRA Systems, ATIRA, the Pawnee Indian goddess, mother protector of the earth. And so she's sort of there. The Pawnee were the most resistant tribe to signing any of the treaties with the white man. So they were smart. And as a result, they were vilified in American history and made out to be these bad guys when in fact they were rogues that were smart enough and refused to roll over and be relegated to reservations. Ultimately, they were wiped out by the whites and the other Indians. So there's a lot of meaning in the name. But so I got into discovered this issue with the flame retardants in the firefighting industry. They're extremely toxic.
I hate to interrupt you, but yeah, we've got
extremely.
And people don't know this, right?
Yeah.
So what happens? There's a fire, either in a home or in a forest fire, right?
And they use retardants. Class A foams on every truck in America. It's a surfactant. It's toxic. It's a scam. It doesn't do anything. They've proven that water is almost more effective. So they're pouring this chemical into the trucks. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and firefighters are flowing this in proportion at a certain proportion rate into the water stream, and it's supposed to help fires, help them fight fires. It does nothing. And then in the wildland, the most dramatic example of this is the red stuff you see coming out of planes. And every year the climate's getting warmer and drier in some parts of the world, and certainly out here in the West, and the fires are getting bigger and badder. And there are more and more people building houses into these areas, urban interface areas. And so there's lots of millions of dollars and lives at stake. So the first responders conscribe to save their homes and their dogs and their pets and the people. So they're dropping this stuff all over the place. And the first responders have the highest incidence of cancer of any occupation in the country. These chemicals are EPA banned. They kill fish, birds, insects. They stay in the soil for thousands of years. I mean, it's just one small environmental issue out there, but it's one I chose to fight because I was in the industry.
But I want to understand this. How is it possible that if the substances that the firefighters use, whether it's out of a plane in a forest
that they're
fire,
EPA banned?
Yeah, how is that?
I don't know. The government, they break the law all the time. They're the boss, right? So they got sued in court.
Who's they?
The U.S. Forest Service, by a group of their own employees. They have Forest Service employees for environmental ethics sued their own employer, and they got found guilty for using these products that were banned. And they still use them because there's no other alternative. And so there's the opportunity. We needed to create an alternative. I went to a trade show in Southern California, sat down at lunch. This is one of the serendipity moments. Met a firefighter, started talking to him about what I was there for. And, what are the alternatives out there that I can use on my truck? And he goes, there's not much, but this gel technology. I ended up researching this gel technology. Met a guy that was repping it on the West Coast, who is now my business partner. He's a genius engineer, hardcore Oregon backwoods guy, grew up on a farm, 30-year firefighter with a master's degree in mechanical engineering. He said, dude, he goes, if we can engineer a gel technology that works, that flows, that changes viscosity, won't clog pipes, and we can get water to stick and stay on vertical surfaces, that and it's non-toxic, we're going to own the industry. And so that's what we did. Little did I know that beyond the engineering phase, there was a huge barrier to adoption in the industry, because we're providing a tool that's life and death, first responders, government bureaucracies. And so it went through this 3-year valley of death vetting, where I had to raise money to tread water, to survive, to be authenticated. And we just finished that process about 8 months ago. And now we're launching the product with our ambassador, quote unquote, ambassador agencies, which are the most influential firefighters in the world: San Bernardino, San Diego, LA County. And so they're on board and just starting to facilitate.
And so they have now committed to using
they're
strong
endorsing
water?
It. Yep, they are. And so we branded the name of the technology Strong Water Technology. And it's a fire block gel. And essentially what we're doing is enabling water to stick and stay. And in suppression mode, so it uses 10 times less water to fight.
Hold on.
Ahead, yeah.
You create essentially a gooey ball of water,
Mm-hmm.
and that gooey ball of water sticks onto the wall, whatever it is, right?
Prevents things from burning, lowers ambient temperatures.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear about that. So there's a fire raging near this wall that's now been sprayed with the strong water, this goo.
Mm-hmm.
That wall is not going to get on fire.
Right. So in the wildland urban interface, they can go, they've never had this ability. Now they can roll up with trucks. We manufacture trucks as well. If you go to ATIRASystems.com, you'll see we make Type 3 and Type 6 fast attack engines. I started as a contractor. I own an engine like that. My partner's, like I said, a genius engineer who's been able to make these things. So we're selling those. You don't need to buy our truck to facilitate the use of the gel. It plugs and plays with the existing equipment on the trucks, which was one of the key factors to success with this thing.
But obviously you think over time people are going to want purpose-built trucks for strong water.
Right. And so that's already, if they're transitioning to the gel, then they're going to transition to our trucks.
Is that a new part of your business, or did I just forget about that?
It's a relatively new one that we're just started to monetize, right? And it's a separate business.
How smart.
Yeah. ATIRA GST.
Yeah.
Gel Strike Team Inc. And if you go on the website, it's on the website, but it's a separate business. And so in exposure protection, these firefighters can now roll through a neighborhood, spray the roofs and the walls of the houses, and keep moving, and the flames will blow through, and the structures are saved. There's video we've proven it in testing facilities. So
I just want to make sure I got.
And then in suppression, interior attack, this is where we really shine, which is most of the fires in the country are structure fires. When firefighters go into a building, they're trying to find the seat of a fire. The number one killer of a firefighter is flashover. That's where flames come around behind them. Superheated air ignites behind them and they get trapped and they burn. With our product, it lowers the ambient temperatures so much, sucks the heat out of the air, provides a protection coating on the surface and the floors as they progress through the building to get to the seat of the fire. We're eliminating flashover. So the number one killer of firefighter, gone. We're knocking out fires with 1/10 of the water. Another big killer of firefighters is structural loading. Water, structural load,
just can't
thousands
take
and
all the
thousands of
water.
gallons of a compromised burning structure, they collapse. Well, guess what? Also, the number one cost associated with fire damage is water damage, right? And so the insurance companies are starting to pay attention. I was getting an email this morning from the CEO of AIG, and I'm also dealing with the CEO directly of XL Caitlin. The top guys are paying attention now because they spend billions a year on loss in the industrial sector, not professional
because
firefighters,
of water,
protecting assets because of water and fire.
Well, I'll tell you, we built our house, and of course we had to build it to code, and code requires fire, water, sprinklers.
Yep.
And we have a next door neighbor who's a retired fire chief, and he said, if there's ever a fire here, you're going to have way more damage from those sprinklers than you're going to have from any fire damage in this house.
Right. And so the methodology of
so
fighting
what
fires
percentage less water do you use?
90% less. Yeah, 90%.
So they need 1/10 the water to fight the same fire.
Yes. And we have yet to prove that because there are no United Labs tests that have been developed around gel because we're so disruptive and so new. We've proven it in demonstrations, but we have to have United Labs metrically sign off on the actual percentage of use. But we've proven it in to the biggest.
Do you have relationships there? Are they working with you?
Yeah, well, it's not a matter of money. It's been like, what do I allocate my funds on? Keeping the lights on, making more gel, getting more customers, or going out and substantiating the metrics. And so we're hopefully getting to a point where I can do
These are the decisions of an entrepreneur, right,
exactly,
Mr. Denholm?
Right. Yeah, where do we spend our money, right? So, and in suppression, we're proved the knockdown uses less water, eliminating flashover, eliminating structural loading for the insurance companies or the damage, the risk mitigation. We're saving them tons of money because most of the water, you think of a high rise and the water cascading from floor to floor to floor. If you can isolate the gel, the one extinguish the fire, you're limiting all that runoff, which, by the way, is toxic, which goes down the drain. So that, there's the list of benefits.
So it's insane.
Right.
So when you say this, right, I would sit here and go, well, that must be unbelievable. It must have taken about 6 months, and the entire industry is now standardized on strong water technology.
Well, it's going to take more than 6 months. We're starting with.
It hasn't been that easy, right?
It hasn't been that easy. There are an entrenched group. Firefighters do not just turn the page quickly. It takes a lot to impress these guys. You got to do it on their time and on your dime. And it's been a long process of vetting, and we've chosen to impress the top firefighters in the nation right here in California, and they have a really high bar, and they all decide things on committees, and there's all these bid processes and programs you have to be, aligned with and approved by. And so the process to be able to get to market was more difficult than the engineering of creating the product. So, and we're there now. So I'm trying to scale. We've got big purchase orders coming in the next couple months. The governor's been holding back the budgets, and I'll be able to factor those, and it'll be so de-risked at that point I can go out and get the big money we need to go after a multi-billion-dollar industry. And I'm hoping AIG or somebody like that steps up because the insurance companies have the most to lose. They spend the most. When
that's
things
interesting.
burn,
you think an insurance company invests directly, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I mean, one of my buddy's fathers was the inventor of the reinsurance industry. His name's Brian O'Hara. He lives in Bermuda with all the other billionaire insurance guys. And I happened to go over for the America's Cup. I'm friends with Spithill, the captain of the Oracle team boat. And I also met the CEO of Oracle, and he invited me to come out. My friend was running their cloud division, Sean
They
Price.
have two CEOs. Which one did you meet?
Well, they have one CEO and one founder.
Well, no,
I've met them both.
So who did you
Mark
meet?
Hurd.
Okay, yeah.
I was with him. I was his guest. I got the VIP.
I bet he loves you, right?
Ultra VIP at the not that I needed it because I know Spithill and I could have got in there, but I wasn't going to bother him, and they lost. So I got invited because my friend Sean Price was running their cloud division, got melanoma and died last October. It was, talk about a fucking legend and an incredible man.
I knew Sean.
Yeah, I know you did. Anybody that's worth anything in Silicon Valley.
He was one of the funnest guys to work with. I met him back at Success Factors. Yeah, he
was an animal.
Canadian boy.
Canadian hockey player. We're both hockey players.
Maniac.
Both skiers, sailors. We're best friends. And he passed, and I met Mark Hurd at Sean's memorial at the Ferrari Club in Burlingame. Sean was a race car driver that just happened to win Daytona for Team Porsche. He was an endurance motorcycle racer that won the San Felipe 250. The guy's like an executive that go weekend warrior automotive racer that would win these big, just an animal. Against pros, the best guys in the world. And so I loved him. And I met Mark through there.
Fucking awesome.
I ended up at the America's Cup in Bermuda, and I reached out to a friend, this surfer that's a shaper in Bermuda that's a friend of a friend, and I ended up staying with his dad. And I started chatting with his dad or with his son. He's like, what is this fire retardant? I told him all, but he goes, do you know what my dad did? He's retired now. He goes, he was CEO of one of the largest insurance companies in the world. He's the inventor of the reinsurance industry. And he hobnobs with all the top, so another serendipity moment. And I pitched the whole thing to Brian O'Hare at his house, who I was staying at on the North Shore, on this gorgeous estate property in Bermuda. And he's like, kid, this needs to happen. And so he started rolling out these introductions. And here I am 6 months ago going, okay, we've got the fire officials paying attention. All right, now we can take their testimony and go to people like the insurance companies. I don't know anybody in the insurance industry. Where am I going to start? And now I'm starting with, I'm getting emails from the CEO of AIG. So I think we're starting in the right place.
Wow.
Wish me luck. Yeah.
And that's it. The end of part 1. Now, please turn the tape over, press play, and strap yourself in for part 2.